Welcome, everybody, to Literarily Wasted. This is a very, very special episode of Literarily Wasted because I don't know if you know what's going on, but we have a special guest today. But for anybody that's new here, because we may have some new people joining, we are Literarily Wasted. We are an online science fiction fantasy book club that meets twice a month. You can do it from your home. You don't have to go anywhere. You can do it in your pajamas. And the best thing of all is that you get to pick the books. You get to vote on what books we read. So that's my little pitch for Literarily Wasted for anybody that's new, but I'm sure we have a bunch of familiar faces here in the crowd. I'm looking at all your comments. Everyone's like, hello.
Yeah, we've got Jay from the UK. Kristen, thank you for setting 5 reminders today.
Wow. So we will.
Someone else had a sign? Yeah, good.
We will forego the usual song and dance just to get right into it. Because again, we have a very special guest.
No one wants to hear the song.
No one wants to hear the song.
No.
So without further ado, let me introduce the New York Times and USA Today best-selling Lambda Literary Award-winning author of The House in the Cerulean Sea, In the Lives of Puppets, and much, much more. Please welcome to this stage, or whatever you call it, the screen, TJ Klune.
Hooray, clapping. This is fun. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. And yes, what is this song? I want to hear the song?
Wait, Talia, he wants to hear the song. So I think
no, we can't. It's too late because we're already 3 minutes in, and way too many people are here, and the song would take 10 minutes. It's basically
I just no to TJ Klune. Jeez.
I'm not saying
He wants the song.
Is this sometime I have to use my powers for evil?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm a New York
I feel
Times
like you would respect a personal boundary.
Oh, okay, yep, good. Totally good. There we go. That's all it takes.
So I will tell you, it's usually when we have normal book discussions, just to give everyone time to just to give everyone time to join in. The joke here is that I'm not a singer, but it's a silly thing that we started a year or two ago, I don't even know, where I would sing the names of everyone as they join the live stream to the tune of Wacko singing the countries from Animaniacs.
Oh my God, this is the best thing in the world. Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what? What I can do is I can go back and watch other videos that you've done that in, so I can see that. And
if you're ever incredibly bored, then sure.
You should just join our book club officially.
Yeah.
And then you can just come hang out with us all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wait, y'all, we're here to talk about the book.
So we got a ton of people here in the comment section that, that we're going to have questions. So, but right now everybody's talking about the song. So we'll give you time to post your questions. And I think I'll just kick it off with a softball, I guess. I don't know. Because I read that when your first foray into writing was Metroid fan fiction, and I really want to know about
this. Bam! What? Hell yeah. Yeah. That's how I pretty much got my start as a kid, was because when I was like, video games were huge. They still are. I mean, I have the Legend of Zelda tattoo. The first thing I did was after playing, so Super Metroid, the video game from the 80s.
So good.
You're playing through it. It's wonderful. Everything's good. You're a badass space marine with a gun for an arm. You're taking on Mother Brain. All of this stuff is going on. And then at the very end of the game, Samus takes off their helmet for the first time and reveals that you've been playing as a woman the whole time. And that just sparked my imagination. So what did I do? Well, I loved reading, but I didn't understand quite what storytelling was. I was 6, 7 years old. So I had these notebooks that I would fill up with basically what it amounted to was fan fiction of me and Samus Aran going around and killing all the aliens and other Metroids and Mother Brain. And I wrote like story after story. And I cannot tell you what the stories were about, but I do remember one thing. I remember the phrase or the words have to, Haveto. I didn't know how to spell have, or I didn't know that was the right word for it. So I was spelling it HALF, have to, the whole way through this. And it seems like those are some of the only words that I knew. But yeah, that was my first foray into writing when I was a kid. And that's all I've ever wanted to do.
You can't argue that video games aren't art. They inspired you to create.
That's right.
Also, one could say the same thing about fan fiction. Fan fiction is a wonderful and versatile form of literature and should not be looked down upon as anything else.
Love that.
Fantastic. I love it.
As someone who may have dabbled in some fan stuff myself sometimes.
Oh, I could tell you that later, as I got older and teenagery and hormonal, there might have been some slash fan fiction between Fox Mulder and Walter Skinner from the X-Files. That fan fiction, by the way, I still have, and lifted wholesale and plagiarized myself and put it into one of my books, the Extraordinary series for young adults, where the main character there is a fan fiction writer. I lifted my own fan fiction, just changed the names for the story. And so when you read that, if you've ever read those stories, when you read Nick's cringy fan fiction, that was me writing as a 13, 14-year-old.
That's fantastic.
That's amazing. That's now we got to put that on the literarily wasted list so we can. But you have to give us the original so we can kind of.
No. No, those are going to be stayed locked up.
The tomes.
All right, I have a very, very shallow, like surface level, quick question before we hand it over to all the book club members. But I'm just wondering where you come up with certain names for your characters, in particular a gnome who resides near a Cerulean Sea.
So,
because I know where mine came from, so I just want to know.
So this is okay. When I was a kid, I had a choice, and I mean this with no disrespect, but I could have either grown up, I could have either become a writer or psychotic because I hear voices in my head. I hear characters talk to me. That's how the books existed. The reason In the Lives of Puppets exists is because I bought a Roomba vacuum cleaner, and for the first time, I've never had one before. And of course, humans do that thing where we give human-like qualities to inhuman things. So I put googly eyes on it. And this stupid little machine named Hank got itself stuck in the corner the very first time I turned that thing on, and made the saddest beeping sound I have ever heard a machine make. And from there, I knew that character was named Rambo. I knew he was Rambo in my head. I knew that Rambo was somehow connected. I knew Rambo wasn't going to be the main character. If there needed to be a main character, it was going to be human. But if this robot family was raising a human, there needed to be some kind of a medical doctor. But what if she was a sociopath? And that just keeps going on and on. Nurse Ratched, obviously, is, homage to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I will tell you, I rarely get high on my own supply. But when I came up with the acronym for Nurse Ratched, I was like, I am a funny guy. That is good. I enjoyed that. But the characters, they kind of tell me who they are. Victor in The Lives of Puppets, it's obviously an allegory or a take on Frankenstein. So you would think that the name Victor would be apropos. I didn't know that was a take on Frankenstein until I got to the point where Rambo says, it's alive. And I was like, wait, is my character's name Victor? It's just one of those things that the brain does. It makes the little connections. I can't tell you where Talia came from. I can't tell you how. All I know is that she was Talia when I met her in my head. And that was, she came to almost all of the kids from the house in the Cerulean Sea almost came fully formed. Chauncey was the first. Chauncey is who I hear constantly, and Chauncey is who was there when he was kicking my butt, telling me it was time to write a sequel.
It's the only time I've ever read my name in a book, so I'm thrilled at just.
I'll tell you this: I've never met Atalia. I mean, now that the book came out, and I've met so many who say I've never seen my name in a book before. But before that, I had never met anybody with that name, and I was just like, okay, this is your name.
Well, mine was because my dad's a big Rocky fan, and so it was after Adrian. But
if it makes you feel better, my real name is Travis John Klune, and I was named after a character on The Young and the Restless. So
that came on after The Price is Right. That's all I know.
Oh no! As a queer kid growing up, I knew everything about the entire show.
So I want to point out this comment from somebody that's definitely not related to me.
It's his twin.
just kick off the comments saying, as a developmental pediatrician who works with kids who are all different and unique, I'm very glad you wrote Cerulean Sea and would love it to be required reading for all. So,
well, thank you for saying that. And something that I really want to say about that is I have met so many people since that book came out who work in social work, or who are teachers, or who are in the medical field and work with children, who tell me, I have a Talia, or I have a Chauncey, I have a Lucy, I have a Theodore, I have a Sal, I have a Fee. And it has been absolutely remarkable to be able to hear that, because even though these kids are fiction, they're real to me. I care about them deeply, 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 deeply. And I think a large part of why a lot of people seem to think I got the voices right for kids, because, you know, there's a chance when you're writing kids in fiction that they can become too precocious. And I'm going to be the first to admit I've been guilty of that in the past. So it's not like I'm saying I'm better than anybody, but I wanted to take extra care here with them. And it was because I knew what it felt like to be them. I didn't have the greatest home life growing up. I didn't get to have the love and support that a lot of people get to have. So I know what it felt like to be a kid and feel othered in ways that it makes you feel like you can't relate to your peers. And then that's a train in the background, my apologies. And then, and I wanted to write that. And I wanted the best thing about kids is that they don't have the filter of cynicism that comes with age. They are weird and wonderful, and they say whatever it goes into their head, no matter how it sounds when it comes out. And it's extraordinary that these are little human beings that are finding out who they are and making a place for themselves. And shouldn't they be able to do that in a home that's full of love and support and stuff like that? What does it look like when kids who have never gotten a chance to be themselves actually get to be themselves? And I know what that feels like, because I never really got the chance to be myself. I mean, hell, I wouldn't be here now if it wasn't for two women in my 7th grade English class, my two teachers, who told me one day at the very end of the year, they told me one day they would see my name on a book in a bookstore. I am here because of them. They were the first people to tell me I ever did something good. So I know the power that kind of teachers and people in that position have, because I'm proof positive of what seems like maybe commonplace compliments can mean to a kid who never got any of that. And so I know what that's like. I've been there before, and I wanted to make sure that kids get to be kids, that they get to be weird and wonderful and strange and come up with crazy ideas. And it just so happens that these ones have powers that go along with it.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Cool. Emotional, and we're not even 15 minutes. Solid.
So Christy, hit us with one of the questions that was submitted in advance.
Kira asked, what do you find to be the most challenging thing about writing?
Okay, so I love my job more than anything in the world. This is all I've ever wanted to do. And so even the hard days, I tend to love. The thing that is hard for me is I have ADHD. Part of my ADHD, I would say a really big part of my ADHD, is that I hyperfocus on things that I don't understand, things that interest me, things that confuse me, things that I know nothing about, that all of a sudden I need to know everything about that. And sometimes that means hours will go by with me not having done work or anything like that. But I've managed to make a schedule for myself that works. Sticking to it is easy. It's great. The hardest thing about writing for me right now is that I have so many ideas in my head, and I know that I will never spend even if I spend the rest of my life writing them, I'll never be able to tell every story I've wanted to tell. I have so many things I want to do, but only so much life left for which to do them. And, you know, yeah. I want to write graphic novels. I want to do an illustrated novel. I want to write a novel that has illustrations and margins and footnotes and everything like that. I have so many different things I want to try. And sometimes it can get overwhelming in my head because I'll be pulled in so many different directions. And when you're pulled in so many different directions, you're not going anywhere. And you kind of get stuck. So that's a hard thing for me, is that sometimes I get overly ambitious. Sometimes I get too easily distracted. But when I'm in a story, when I'm writing a book, after all the research has been done, after everything, and I'm going in the story, that's my sole focus for until it's done.
We have a good follow-up question here from Martin in the comments section. A lot of writers stick to a strict writing schedule while others just write when the urge hits them. Do you have a system that you use to draft these great books we've been reading?
Oh yeah, I am strictly scheduled. It's how I have to operate. I'm hiding it from you all right now, so you can't see it. No, don't turn. No, I'm not going to turn my camera around. But you know that "It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia" meme of Charlie in front of the conspiracy board with all the lines. Yeah, that's right over there.
Well, show
Oh,
us.
but that's
No,
fascinating.
no,
Like,
no, no, it is no, because there's spoilers about something I'm
Right.
working on. And I
okay.
can't.
All right.
But
Fair
it
enough.
is. I am a guy that does Post-its. I'll put Post-its on my window that's right here in front of me and pull them off as I go. But I'm writing every morning that I'm actually writing and working. I am writing at 7:00 in the morning until usually 11, 12, and then I'm done. And I don't write at night. I don't write unless I'm like towards the end of a book where I'm getting super excited about finishing it, then I'll put in like late hours in writing. But usually I stick to morning because that's when I feel. I've always been a morning person, so that's when I feel best.
Nice.
Still want to see the wall.
I
bet you do.
I won't.
I mean,
I don't want
like-
the spoilers.
Well, I will say, like, as a fellow creative, I think I always find it really interesting to just see the creative process of somebody else. And like
Mhm.
maybe it's something that you could share after the novel's out if there's no spoilers, to just show like this is what goes on in my brain. Like I think that's
Yeah,
fascinating.
like here's a little bit more of my crazy.
Yeah, no,
You see
but
that
like
way.
I respect the crazy because it shows the process and how you create these worlds.
Well, then
So
if
anyway,
I do
that's
that,
just
I'm
me.
gonna have to recreate the meme and dress like Charlie and have the cigarettes
Yes.
sticking out like that.
Well, that's even better. Okay, sign me up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of our group members has already offered to redo the meme with your head.
You joke, but
It'll
listen,
happen by
our
the end of
book-
No,
the
he's
No.
by the end of
probably
the
already
stream.
in the
our
process.
He's
book
working on it right
members
now.
I could
love to
do
meme
this. Yeah.
everything.
All right. Yeah.
Nope.
After
They
the
will
thing
make it
comes
for you.
out that's for, I will post it. That is a
He'll-
promise. You can hear it now.
Awesome.
Yay! But also Dan's gonna have this ready to show on this live stream by the time
This will
we're
end
done
up going
filming.
in the lounge as soon as the stream is over. I guarantee.
That's
you.
amazing.
So speaking of Dan, he posted in one of our posts, asking for questions. He said, your books are considered comfort reading. Do you see yourself as the worrying type who needs the comfort your books provide, or more the comforter who provides them?
I think, to be honest, at this stage in my life, I'm more of a worrier. And look, I think sometimes that my books get labeled a little unfairly as cozy when I'm not necessarily what I was going for. I've never promoted myself as a cozy author. That's not what I do. I just so happened that The House in the Cerulean Sea absolutely did not invent the cozy genre as referenced by, Pamela Reed and Diana Wynne Jones and Howl's Moving Castle, which is one of my favorite books of all time.
Mhm.
But it came right at the beginning of the pandemic and was swept up in the cozy moment, along with, I would say, Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree.
Yeah.
And
it's fun.
look, that's great that people think that. But I wrote The House in the Cerulean Sea and Under the Whispering Door and In the Lives of Puppets in 2018 and 2019. None of these books all the books were written by the time The House in the Cerulean Sea came out. And the reason I did that was because at the time, we were in a very strange presidency and the world felt like it was on fire. And I wanted to put out something happy in the world. I wanted to put out to remind people that there's good in the world. And then, we sold it to Macmillan and Tor. And in 2019, they're like, are you ready? Are you ready? We got your release date. It's March 17th, 2020. And I was like, for a year, I was like, yeah, here we go. Here we go to March 17th, 2020. It's going to be the best year ever. The book is going to come out. People going to read it. They're going to know it. And then, as you all know,
What happened?
so I was about to go on my first ever national book tour in support of this book. I was leaving my first event was Tuesday, March 17th when the book came out. And Thursday before, I got a phone call at 6 o'clock at night from a number in New York. And I remember thinking, oh, it's my publishers calling to say, we're so happy for you. Yay. And it was the one of the big higher ups in the publisher. And she goes, hey, so have you heard of this thing called COVID-19? And I said, yeah. What about it? She goes, well, unfortunately, we don't know how bad it's getting, and we're canceling your tour, and we're canceling everybody else's tours, and everybody who's on tour right now is being sent home automatically. But we're still going to release your book next week. Maybe we'll try to do something online because nobody knew how to really do that in bookstores and stuff like that. And I said, okay. Internally screaming. And then the book came out, and I remember thinking, okay, everybody who's out there buying toilet paper and wiping down the cereal boxes, do you want to read a book about kindness and the Antichrist? Do you want to read this? Hello? And I'll say this: 8 months after The House in the Cerulean Sea came out, it started 10 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. Guess what day it got on the New York Times bestseller list? January 6th, 2021, the day of the Capitol insurrection. So when the sequel comes out on September 10th, whatever happens, it's not my fault. I didn't do it. I
don't know. There's a theme here.
Right. So it's those books, that first book, and subsequently Under the Whispering Door and and The Lives of Puppets have meant so much to people. And I often wonder if is it because of rose tinted glasses, because that it was right place, right time? Is it what you needed? And so something I've been very, very strict towards is telling people I cannot recreate how The House in the Cerulean Sea made you feel the first time you read it. I cannot recreate the circumstances. I can't recreate what was going on in the world that drove you to that book. Maybe you read it right when it came out. Maybe you read it deep in the pandemic in 2021. I don't know. But if you go into the sequel expecting the exact same feeling that you got, you're going to be disappointed, because I can't ever write the same story twice, even in a sequel. I can't. The characters deserve so much more than that. But the comfort that these books gave to people is, I never expected it. I am extraordinarily humbled by it. I am somewhat baffled by it, but at the same time, I mean, I got lucky. I honestly think it was right place, right time, and it was the book that people needed at the time. I absolutely believe that, and I'm so grateful for that. Even though I wish the world could have been a much better place than it was.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it definitely resonated with a lot of people, and I think that we have people in the comments that are going to let you know why. They'll tell you. And sure, maybe right place, right time, but I think it's a testament to your storytelling and the characters you created and the messaging.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm just not to discount the fact that I worked my butt off to get there, to write the books, and I've been published since 2011, and it's just, this was my big break, and there was some luck behind it, but I worked my butt off to get there, and I'm proud of myself for doing what we did.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for doing what you did, because The House on the Cerulean Sea is a really special book to me, and not for any reason except that it just made me feel a lot, and it just brought a lot of joy into my life, and I've been able to share it with a lot of people that I love, including this book club.
So she gifted it to literally everybody.
Yeah, it's like my most gifted book, and
well, thank you.
Gotten 2 book clubs to read it, and yeah,
I gave it to a friend, which is fine because I have another copy, and then I pre-ordered the hardback special edition, so then I'll have 3.
Yeah,
I do think it should be required reading, and I mean, Justin mentioned it, and I think it's interesting that people call it a cozy read, and maybe that is just the genre.
And that's okay. I'm okay.
With.
Yeah, I'm okay with that being labeling that. It's when people start calling like In the Lives of Puppets cozy, and I'm like, well, it also deals with the entire eradication of the human race. So it's not
like I feel like it depends.
Sometimes
on
you just gotta unplug it, plug it back in.
Yeah,
because
right.
It's
wonderful.
Sea didn't it? If I had to give it a positive, like my version would be more heart enlarging or anxiety easing.
It is.
Like,
It is a book
I don't
for
think that's
to
the same as
me.
cozy.
I remember. I remember one of the early, because your publisher, whenever you get bigger reviews, they send them to you. And one of the early reviews of the book said something like, well, I enjoyed this book, but I don't know who this book is for. Is it for young people? Is it for older people? Because it's not a young adult book, even though a lot of people try to classify it as young adult. It is not a young adult novel. The lead character is a 40-year-old man. I mean, come on, he's not a young adult. So my response to that is that book is for anyone who wants to read it. It's for anyone. I've had people in their 80s and their 90s, that age, write to me and say, I know I'm probably not your intended audience, but I read that. And this is why I tell them, you are my intended audience. It doesn't matter if you're straight. It doesn't matter if you're queer. It doesn't matter how old or young, whatever your background. Everybody knows in this world, at least I think a majority do, know what it feels like to be othered at some point in your life, know what it feels like to be told that you're different, and know how damaging that can be. It doesn't matter if it happens to you as a kid or if it happens to you as an adult. It hurts. And I think that we are so much more connected than we want to realize, because it's so funny when you see stories online of people doing certain things in certain regions, the way they act in their families, and then people clear across the world saying, we do the same thing in our house too. I thought we were the only ones. And it's just humans. I have this thing that I say all the time. I really, really don't like people, but I love humanity. I love humanity because humanity gave us art and music and everything creative. And we're so funny because we are so much more alike than we ever will give ourselves credit for. And it's ridiculous that we can't realize that. It's so ridiculous that we can't realize that.
Yeah, and Alex's comment, Cerulean Sea is the most overwhelmingly loved gush fest of a book club book for this group, possibly tied with Matt Haig's The Humans. So that should mean a lot, because
it does. It absolutely.
We don't go easy on the books here in literary. But that leads me to a question that I wanted to ask about. What we talk about in our discussions of both House and Cerulean Sea and in the Lives of Puppets is that found family is a big theme for you, a big concept in your books, and to me, it's one of the biggest reasons why your stories resonate so well. So what is it about that concept that inspires you to write about it or include it in your stories?
So like many things, found family has been tropified, and it is now a thing where, and I'm not gonna say whether or not you can advertise for that. It's not for me to say. It's not my book. Advertise however you want, call it whatever you want. But I think it's important to realize that found family came from a very real place for queer people. That's where it came from. We didn't, so many of us did not have the love and support we should have had as children, growing up in families that resented us for who we were. And so we had to go out and make our own families. My entire family is made up. Hi, Katie. My entire family is made up of my brother, my sister, and everybody else isn't related to us by blood. We have found our own way, built our own family, and within that family, there's subgroups of family. And it is so important to recognize how much the idea of found family is a reality for so many queer people, including myself. I mean, I write from a place of knowing what that is and knowing what that feels like. And again, I will say that I was initially resistant when it was starting to get tropified, and you see it on graphics and found family this, and I'm just like, you know what, at the end of the day, if that's what gets people to read, that's all that matters. It reminded me of how it sounded like I was almost trying to gatekeep a thing, and that's never how it should be. When people diss on big huge books that come out, say like Twilight, 50 Shades of Grey, all that, everybody focuses on the what they consider subpar quality, but nobody focuses on the fact that it got millions of people to read who may not have read anything in a very long time. That is always something to be celebrated. Never, ever give people crap for what they read. That is so stupid. So if it's not your thing, don't read it. But it turned out to be the thing for so many people. And for all we know, maybe half, maybe 3/4 of those people continued to read because they loved what that feeling gave them. And that's amazing.
That is amazing. I mean, for us,
You're
I
making
think
all the book club members cry.
it's fine. It's fine. We're all crying, but if I'll say, Literarily Wasted is kind of a found family for a lot of us.
Good. That's what we need. That's what we need. And Okay, let me give you a little tea. So one time, and I'm not going to mention who it is. One time I was invited to the Seattle Public Library for to be like part of their keynote, whatever. And it was basically rich people coming in to donate to the Seattle Public Library. It was like an auction, and here you got to meet this author. And I remember there was a very big, famous literary author there who who was introducing me to someone, and he shook my hand and he introduces me as, "Oh, this is TJ Klune. He writes the most workmanlike prose that people have found, that people have been drawn to." And I remember thinking, who the hell do you think you are? But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? I bet I have more people reading than you do. And at the end of the day, isn't that all that matters? It's all that matters is people read. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter. Nobody should be gatekeeping reading ever, ever.
Yeah, agreed.
We're not doing that.
No. Well, and like we have a conversation that comes up a lot with our group is like
Really do.
audiobooks versus regular books. And
Oh
stuff
my
like
God,
that.
audiobooks count as reading. That counts as
Oh,
reading. That
absolutely.
counts as
There
reading.
You heard it. You heard it here. Say it 300 times. I'm going to do this.
When I hear people say that, I'm like, okay, well, you don't count comic books as reading or graphic novels as reading. That is reading. That is reading. If somebody is reading their huge D&D lore guide, that is reading. That counts. That's fine.
Yeah.
You hear that, Mom? Nintendo Power is reading.
Me
I
too,
know
man.
She's watching.
Hi, Mom.
Hi.
Okay, what else we got? Other questions from the club?
I got a couple of comments. So we have one group member that said, not a question, but reading Under the Whispering Door really helped me when my mom was going through cancer treatments. So thank you for that book. She's recovered and is doing well.
Good.
There's my mom. She's fine.
And I saw a couple.
Hi,
I
Elba
saw a couple of
Schwartz.
other comments that mimic or that were very similar to that. I think that book really has helped a lot of people through some very hard times.
Do you guys want me to really make you cry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I could not have told this story before I wrote Under the Whispering Door because it is so deeply, deeply personal. If you've read Under the Whispering Door, you know that it is dedicated to a man named Eric. And it's dedicated to Eric, and it says, "I hope you woke up in a strange place." And the reason it says that is because Eric Arvin wrote a book called Woke Up in a Strange Place. Eric Arvin was my fiance. In 2013, I asked him to marry me. He said yes, and we moved to Virginia. 6 weeks later, unfortunately, he collapsed on the floor in our home with his legs were no longer working. What followed was 5 months of hospitals. At that point, early on, we found out they had a tumor growing on his brainstem. And of course, if you know anything about the body, you know the brainstem is the most dangerous place to have surgery because the brainstem is basically, it sends your brain to the rest of your body. And inside your brainstem is something known as the phrenic nerve. And the phrenic nerve is how we breathe. It's how our brain sends messages to our lungs. And they went in to remove the tumor. Eric was brought out of sedation before he went in. He was basically given two options. He was told, you can either keep going as you are and you will eventually pass within probably a few weeks to a month, or you can do this extremely difficult surgery. And he said 6 words. He said, "Let's go, let's go, let's go." So I got that tattooed on my arm for me and Eric. You can see the E and the T are in red. He had the surgery. It lasted for 13 hours, but unfortunately, when he came out, Eric was paralyzed from the neck down. They ended up damaging. They got the tumor, but they ended up damaging the brainstem, and unfortunately, too, the phrenic nerve was severed, and that is not something that can be repaired. So Eric was on ventilator support. Only the ability to move his head left to right like that. And he survived 3 years. And what happened to him happens to most people who are in his position with quadriplegia in your ventilator support. You usually die by pneumonia because it's bacteria gets in, and that's what happens. And after he passed, I went through from 2013 on, even when he was still alive, I went through an extraordinarily toxic grief, because I was grieving the life we had and grieving him like he was dead, but he was still alive. And it just wasn't, it was still Eric, but it was it was like limbo grief. And after he passed, I kind of went haywire. I went kind of crazy. And the only thing that has ever helped me get through the noise in my head is writing. So I wrote Under the Whispering Door as a way to try to understand why, if you live long enough to know what love is, you'll know loss at some point in your life. But no two people experience grief the same way. Why? I wanted to know why. Why did it feel like that mine was all consuming and this poison that was in me, but other people around me were moving on? And that's not fair to them. That was just me being selfish in my grief. And so I wrote through it. And I did not get the answers I was looking for, obviously, but I remember feeling a sense of peace after finishing that book that I hadn't felt in a very long time. And as close as I've ever come to putting myself in a book, if you've read that book, you will know the character of Cameron, who is the husk. That was me. I was almost Cameron. I almost made the decisions that Cameron's made, but I thankfully had people around me who helped pick me back up. And so I wrote about grief, and I tried to keep it as agnostic as possible because, frankly, I don't know what happens when we die. I never wrote what was on the other side of that door because I don't know. But since that book has come out, and I don't know why I didn't expect this, but since that book has come out, I have received thousands and thousands and thousands of stories of grief from other people. And it took me a little bit to figure out why people would write this to me and tell me I don't talk about this with anyone. Then I realized it's almost like therapy. When you go to therapy, you tell a stranger what's going on, and they're not going to judge you. And it's so much easier to tell a stranger the bad things than it is to tell someone that you love. And that's what I figured it. Even though I'm no way qualified to be a therapist, and even though I do not act like a therapist, I liken it to that in a way. At the very least, it's getting something off your chest. And so I've become a sort of secret keeper for these little stories of grief. And I would not change that for anything in the world, because not only has it helped me with my own grief, it has also shown me yet again that we are so much more alike than we are different. And yes, grief doesn't affect two people the same way, but there are so many more similarities than there are differences.
Wow. Well, thank you. I mean, thank
Yeah,
you for sharing.
that book was, I would not have been able to tell that story until I wrote that book. And, obviously with time, grief lessens and heals things. But the one thing that I have learned explicitly about grief, is that it never goes away. You just get bigger around it. And then maybe every now and then a little bit will break off to remind you that it's still there, but it's not going to hurt as bad as it used to. It's hardened, it calcifies. It's a petrified piece of wood inside your forest. And that's just all it is.
Well, we appreciate you sharing the story with us.
Absolutely. I think it's important that we talk about stuff like that, because even to this day, the idea of discussing grief is taboo. It is something that people, and I get why people don't like to talk about it, because it's bad. It's bad things happening. But at the same time, the more we talk about it, the more, we can demystify what it goes on with all of us.
And I think that's probably, I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head as far as why the book resonates with so many people. I mean, I think you're basically telling people they're not alone. You're sharing an experience with them, and for lack of better words, just kind of telling them how they feel and explaining to them how they feel and going through that process with them. And I think it almost creates kind of a support group when you write from those emotions.
It does, because you're walking somebody else's shoes, and you get that moment when you realize, okay, this is how I feel. This is how, and it doesn't happen to everyone. And I hope that people get to find a book that they get to see themselves in and feel that way in. But the House, or Under the Whispering Door, came out in 2021. And it's probably the book, aside from House in the Cerulean Sea, that I get most mail about still to this day.
Yeah, we have a lot
Alex,
of people in the book club that have read that.
there.
Alex asked in the chat here, was it the most personal book for you to write?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Which is why you will never, I'll say it right now, you'll never, ever see a sequel to that book, ever. I said everything I needed to say. Going back would not only mess with the journey that I think Wallace and Hugo went on, but also it would just be too much for me to go back to do anything like that. I don't want to say I conquered my grief, but I've made peace with it, and that's the point.
Yeah. Julie says, even though the book was about grief, I can feel the love pulsing through the entire story. What a beautiful tribute to you, Eric. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. And if you want to read a really good book, read Eric Arbin's Woke Up in a Strange Place. It's about his own version of what the afterlife would be like. And it is funny, it is sexy, it is beautiful. And we always joked when he was alive that I was the bigger seller, but he was the better author. And he absolutely was. Absolutely the better author.
Well,
All right,
time to
I'm
put
ready.
some books in the
find
book.
it now.
Bill,
All
and-
right. Add it to the wall. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Another comment we got from a group member was, I really appreciated the asexuality representation, and also reading it so clearly stated how asexuality is a spectrum. This is obviously about the In the Lives of Puppets. I didn't realize there was going to be an ace character in the book, and it was really cool to come across. I hope it will help other people too. Some of the concepts about it being a spectrum and looking different for different people took me a long time to discover piece by piece in ace spaces. And so I really appreciated you including it in your description of Vic as an ace character.
I'm asexual. And so I want to make sure that people like me get to see themselves in books. And I get so tired of reading books where an asexual character is like, oh, I just hadn't met the right person. Now I want to have sex all the time. It's wonderful. It's great. That's not how asexuality works. And so when I got the chance to put asexuality as the center stage or part of the center stage in a hardcover release of a New York Times bestselling book, man, that freaking rules. That freaking rules, because I love getting to show so much diversity in the sexual spectrum, because we are all, again, there's so much variation. There's so much variation. And why can't we have people who others might consider to be abnormal have their moment in there? Why can't I write, I'm an ace man, I want to see ace people in books, so I'm going to put them in books.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Bobby wants to know, do you have any say in the book covers?
So if you've seen,
Oh,
everybody knows
diorama, right?
Well, they all are.
Yeah,
Every single one
that's
of
awesome.
these is every single one of these covers that you see, from The House in the Cerulean Sea to Somewhere Beyond the Sea, to all of these are 3D covers built by Chris Sickles with Red Nose Studios, and then he photographs them. Everything on the cover he makes, from the sky to the water, all of
Wow.
it is real 3D. I have the tea shop from Under the Whispering Door sitting on my desk over here.
Oh.
And when you press a button, the top floor lights up. And he gifted
that's
that to
cool.
me. So the House in the Cerulean Sea cover was not the original cover. The House in the Cerulean Sea, that was not even the original title of the book. The original title of the book was Don't You Wish You Were Here, as inscribed on his mouse pad. And I had this idea of the cover almost looking like a postcard. But then as we were getting more and more in the process, I kept referencing how much Studio Ghibli is an inspiration to me. Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away. My favorite
Yeah.
movie of theirs is Castle in the Sky. I love that film immensely. And that's what I was going for. That's what I was going for with the feeling of The House in the Cerulean Sea, was a Studio Ghibli vibe. So we hired an artist, and the original cover of The House in the Cerulean Sea was this beautiful Ghibli-inspired painting of the island, both above and below the sea, and the top of the island was covered in trees, and two of the trees curled up into horns, and then the bottom of the island was actually Lucy's face. And the publisher felt that it conveyed the wrong message for the book. So we went to Chris Sickles, and all I knew was that he made puppets and puppetry. And I was like, hell yes, let's do that. And then he did. And I've had him work on every one of my covers since, and I will continue to do that for the rest of my life, because Chris Sickles is I'm going to say he is the most talented person I have ever come into contact with. I am boggled by the things that he does. If you want to see something really cool, you can go to his Instagram, Red Nose Studios, and he actually posts videos of fly-throughs of my book covers that he does. You can see each and every little piece of art. Yeah, He is the best. He is absolutely the best. And I will forever be thankful the day he agreed to work with me on that first book. And now I'm holding him hostage for the rest of it.
So we know where to find him.
Yeah.
So follow up in terms of you having a say. Do you have a say in the audiobook narrators? Bethany
Yes.
loved the narrator of Cerulean Sea and Puppets.
And so like piggyback on that, how much say do you have in like how he narrates your characters? Because his narration of the kids in House on the Cerulean Sea was just so good.
So if you'll notice, I work with 3 narrators. I work with Daniel Henning, who does Cerulean Sea. He did In the Lives of Puppets, and he's doing Somewhere Beyond the Sea. I work with Kurt Graves, who does the Green Creek series, and he also did Under the Whispering Door. And I also work with Michael Leslie, who did my YA The Extraordinary series. I have worked with Michael and Kurt for over 10 years. I know them well. I know them intimately. They are my friends. And my whole thing with them, I don't need them to audition. I don't need them to go over the script with me. I don't need them to run voices by me. They have my full and complete trust. Whatever voice you want to make, go for it. It's obvious you're doing it for a reason, because I never want to piggyback, or I never want to feel like I'm peeking over the shoulder or micromanaging a creative, even if they're being creative off of my work. I want them to do their own thing. That's why you hire them. You hire them to tell a story. And if audiobook narrators need to be good storytellers, otherwise you're going to get crap. But when The House in the Cerulean Sea was first up, I didn't know how traditional publishing worked. I didn't know if I could say I want to use my own narrators, and I was kind of too scared to ask in case they were like, no more book deal, bad. And so the Drew with Macmillan Audio contacted me once, and he says, I know this guy. You have to know Daniel Henning. He has 30 years of theater experience, but his audiobook narrations, mostly he's done math textbooks and science textbooks and computer textbooks. And he's done so many of those, you guys. It's amazing. And so I said, okay, well, if it needs to be theatrical, it has to be theatrical. So send it over. Now, you guys have to know, I cannot listen to my own audiobooks because it is like nothing against the narrator. It is just my own words being read back to me makes my skin crawl. It is so bad. And I can tell you why. One time I was proofing an audiobook many, many years ago, and I was trying to get through it, and I accidentally clicked through to a sex scene in a book I'd written, and that was where it stopped. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm gross. So that's why I never listen to my audiobooks. But I clicked on one of the little snippets that Macmillan Audio had sent over to me, and it just so happened to be his voice of Chauncey. And right then I was sold, absolutely sold. I said, do whatever you want. You've sold me on the Chauncey voice. I mean, when you're reading House in the Cerulean Sea and Somewhere Beyond the Sea, when it's giving character descriptions like Chauncey's voice sounds like a sponge being squeezed out into a metal bucket. How do you do that? How do you do that? Daniel Henning found a way, and he is somebody. He has become a great friend of mine, and I'm hoping that he's going to pop up on a couple of my tour stops for Somewhere Beyond the Sea.
Awesome. Now, do the voices he does like match the voices that were in your head for the kids?
No, but now all I hear is his voices. All I hear is when I hear Chauncey, it's him. It's him.
That's fair.
He just did such a good job.
Yeah, he really did.
So switching gears just a little bit, Bethany asks, I don't know if you can or want to talk about it, but curious because in your acknowledgments for In the Lives of Puppets, you told your sensitivity readers.
I got this.
There we go.
So in The Lives of Puppets, the character of Victor was originally a person with autism. And the reason I did that was because there is a harmful stereotype that goes around saying that people with autism act like machines. I am neurodiverse. People with autism are neurodiverse, but that does not give me the expertise to be able to speak for the autistic community. So what do? When I don't know something, I research. So I talk to people with autism. I talk to parents of children with autism. I talk to children whose parents had autism. I talk to medical professionals who treat people with autism. I talked to so many people before I sat down to write this book so I could make sure that I was getting it right. And as always, I hire sensitivity readers for stuff that is not part of my wheelhouse, because I always want to make sure I get it right. 2 of the autistic sensitivity readers thought it was some of the best representation they'd seen, and they could not wait to share it with their community. The 3rd sensitivity reader disagreed. She felt that it was harmful to the community. And so, look, she was hired to do her job, and she did her job. So I can't be mad at her for that, because she was hired to do the job and she did her job. But I was still upset. I was still frustrated because my publisher was coming to me then saying, well, we think you need to change it. And now, as I sit here with the hindsight that I have now, I really wish I had pushed them to hire 2 more sensitivity readers just to get that opinion. And if even one of them agreed with even remotely with what that 3rd one said, absolutely would have done it. But what if the other ones all agreed or were passionate about it, liked it? What would be the decision then? But I caved. And you know, I said, I remember thinking, this is the first time in my life that I felt like my art has been interfered with. But then I thought, how many books have I published? And this is the first time? Get over yourself. So I got over myself and I made the changes, and that's it. Look, you can be upset about things like that. That's totally fine. But you can't be upset when people are doing the job that you hired them to do. That is not something you can be upset about. So where does the anger go? It just dissipates back into the ether. And that's what happens. It's one of those things that it's a learning experience. In that, I learned what I am willing to take and what I should be fighting for more. I should have fought a little bit harder for that. But something that that sensitivity reader said really stuck out to me. She said that all people with autism aren't a monolith. What works for one would not work for another one. And what if that one person it didn't work for was harmed by it? And I remember thinking, okay, that's fair. But at the same time, I can't write with individual people in mind. I can't anticipate how somebody's going to react to something. The only thing I can do is try to do my best when I'm writing. And at that point, that wasn't good enough for that person. And therefore we made the changes. And you know what? At the end of the day, I still got to publish a book with an asexual main character and a vacuum cleaner with social anxiety. How cool is that? How cool. That's victories, you know, and there's still times when you have to learn. So it is what it is.
Victories.
Yeah, see?
Ah!
Yeah.
Yay.
Always in my brain. Always in my brain.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's you know, it is hard to capture the experience of a spectrum in one character, and it can get nuanced.
Absolutely. And sometimes ideas don't pan out as maybe I could have done a better job in writing Victor as when he was the character with autism. Maybe I could have done better. But you know, at the end of the day, you win some, you lose some. It's just
and
how
Victor
it
is Victor, you know. Victor's got his own experiences.
I love him. I love that character. And you know what's funny is I left little bits and pieces. I never want to be coy. If something is going to be on page, I want it to be on page. But I left little bits and pieces, and I've had so many readers with autism reach out to me saying I recognize myself in Victor.
And that's something that we discussed as well in our it doesn't necessarily need to be said. It's just that's who he is, and that's how
right. But I
I
wish to an extent that I could have said that, because again, there's a power in giving something a name. So that way you can be like, oh, this is why he is, and this is what we talk about. But he's still Victor. He has all these other parts. It just works in conjunction with who he is.
Yeah, Victor's awesome.
He's so cool.
So Lisa wants to know, is there a book or author that you automatically go to for comfort?
I am I know it's not going to seem like it, but my favorite genre has always been and will always be horror. I love horror. And like many kids of my generation, I read Stephen King at far too young of an age. The first Stephen King book I read was The Stand, the complete and uncut edition, 1,500 pages. And I started reading that at age 11. Did I understand anything that was going on in that book? Not really, but I do remember being enthralled. Absolutely enthralled. And the fact that we are in the year 2024 and Stephen King is releasing new books every year, my God. If I could have half his output, his longevity, man, that would just be amazing. He is my favorite. And you know what? the Gunslinger series by Stephen King is probably
Oh,
my
yeah.
go-to, because I know I can get lost in that for months. For months. And I love the Gunslinger series. I love everything about Roland. I've read all the extra comics. I've read all the books that have the back lore that were written by like one of his assistants and all that. I've read all of those things. I've even watched the stupid, terrible movie with Matthew McConaughey. I loved the Dark Tower series so much, and I hope it never gets adapted.
It's kind of funny. So we have a group of people that are in our group that have made their own book club, like within our book club, called the Dark Book Club, and they do a horror novel every month. But then they also have another reading group that are going through the Dark Tower series like right now.
Oh gosh,
Yep.
it's so good.
If you want to
I'm
join
so,
Discard,
I am so envious of all the people who get to read the Dark Tower for the first time. I'm so
Yeah.
envious of that, especially, they get a lot of crap, but I love the latter books. I love the last 3 books so much in that series.
Yeah.
Would you ever write one?
Write horror? Oh God, yes.
Mhm.
I have queer horror planned in my head. It's just when is going to be the right time to do it. The one thing I love about horror, the best thing I love about horror, is that happy endings are absolutely not guaranteed or even necessary. I am that weird guy that's like, oh no, this book ended where everybody's dead and the monsters won and everything is bad. I'm like, hooray!
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, give me those dark endings.
So I had a question about. We have some writers in our club who are also here in the comments, and I just wanted to ask you about your relationship between story and message as it pertains to your writing process. And in other words, like, a lot of storytellers struggle with having something they want to say, and finding the sweet spot without it feeling heavy-handed or ham-fisted. You do a great job of telling great stories with themes and messages that feel organic, not preachy. It's just there.
Some of my critics will disagree with you there, but you
Well,
know what I say
they
to
can
that?
call me. I'll talk
You know
to
what I like to say to that? Sometimes certain people need to be beat over the head with those messages. I mean, you have to get it through their freaking thick skull, man.
So as you're writing, you're writing these books, you have something you want to say. Like, how do you navigate, like, I need to make sure I get this message across while also making sure I tell a good story?
It's always, for me, and always will be, character first. I am a character-driven author. I'm a character-first author. I write the characters, not the messages. If the characters somehow bring the messages into the books, and that's what we're doing. I didn't set out for The House in the Cerulean Sea to be some like big, huge thing about the dangers of colonialism or the dangers of this or the dangers of that. I wrote it because I wanted these kids to have a home. And that's why I wrote it. And then as I was writing, the theme started becoming more and more clear through them. Look, I have to give so much credit to my editor, Allie Fisher, with Tor, because she takes my slop and turns it into something readable and comprehensive. And she's the one who is always helping me bring out the themes. She's always the one that is helping me do this. Sometimes I go too little. Sometimes I go way overboard. And she's the one that's standing behind me, because I love editing. I love when I see my editor go in and slash my words. I love seeing those red lines, because that's telling me she's making the book better. And I trust her to make the book better, because that's what a good editor does. And I just, you gotta, okay. Writing is the best job in the world. It absolutely is. But you have to have a thick skin to do what we do. You can't, the expression "kill your darlings" is important here. You can't be so in love with your words that you can't let them go. And I love letting go of my words because I use too many of them.
Well, we are just about to the hour mark, but I wanted to ask you about the sequel to The House in the Cerulean Sea, because everybody here is very excited about Somewhere Beyond the Sea. Oh, there it is.
I have pre-ordered
Tell us what you
this
can.
beautiful
Tell us.
hardback with colored pages.
Oh, good.
Tell us
So
everything.
I'm gonna. So, yeah, tell us everything. You want me to just start reading to you guys?
Yes,
We can just stay here
No,
all night and
okay.
just read.
We have the time.
There was never supposed to be a sequel to The House in the Cerulean Sea. The reason The House in the Cerulean Sea exists is because A, Chauncey does not shut up, and B, in 2021 and 2022, and continuing to this day, there is a huge and rising anti-trans movement that is absolutely disgusting. It absolutely is blowing my mind. And if you were paying attention, and so many of us were, in 21 and 2022, trans people, parents and guardians of trans youth, and gender affirming medical professionals went and testified in front of the government. There were hearings where trans people were able to speak their truths loud and clear. And they were met, unfortunately, with two types of people. They were met with people who smiled and nodded and said, "We hear you, we love you." And then they turned around and voted for anti-trans legislation, or refused to vote for pro-trans legislation. And then there were the other sets of politicians, the smarmy ones, the condescending ones, who sat there in their high seats and questioned trans people on their bodies, on their minds, on their right to exist. They questioned parents and guardians, accusing them of transing their children as if that's how it worked. And not only that, now you have Queen Turf herself, J.K. Rowling, continuing to spread her poison, her vitriol throughout the world. If you were the richest author in the world, if you had sold more books than anybody else in the world, what are you doing now? What is this? What is this? So I actually, I got to speak with some of the people involved in those hearings. And I asked a bunch of questions, obviously, because I wanted to know, what is this? What is this? What did it feel like? What did it feel like for you? How did it look like to you? What were you proud of what you said? What did you say? And I asked them all the same question. I asked them all, if you knew now, if you had the knowledge, the foreknowledge of what was going to happen, that you would basically be ambushed, would you still go through with it? Every single one of them unequivocally said yes. If you remember, at the very end of The House in the Cerulean Sea, Arthur is invited to testify about his experiences with Dicomie under the government. And that was the catalyst for this. I wrote this book because trans people are under attack. I wrote this book because the trans community has weathered hatred and vitriol unlike anything I've ever seen before. And it's being egged on by politicians, it's being egged on by rich white people, it's being egged on by authors who should know better. Authors who wrote books about fighting for what's right, and this is how you treat people. Absolutely not, which is why I'm so proud to say that the villain in Somewhere Beyond the Sea is based on J.K. Rowling and her ideologies. And I have no qualms. I have no F's left to give. I do not care. I don't give a damn about what she thinks or what she does, because one day she's going to know my name, and I'm going to make sure it's a day that she rues for the rest of her life, because she is, look, regardless of how you feel about her books, regardless of how you feel about whatever, the fact that she is attacking trans people on the level that she does is horrifying. It is horrifying. And if I just use my platform to just tell stories, what am I even doing? What am I even doing? So I use this I use my platform to tell stories like this, but also so I can talk about stuff like this, because the trans community has always been there for me. So I am going to be there for them, and I've got a platform to do it. And you know what? Maybe J.K. Rowling will one day find out who I am, and maybe that'll be a really fun day. But at the end of the day, I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing, because our stories deserve to be told, and my community deserves to be protected.
Yes, I don't know if you can see the comments, but people are they're like here for it. They're like,
Someone wants you to run for president in there. So,
no, I moved out of the East Coast simply so I could get away from politics. No, thank you.
I mean, I could put them all on the screen, but basically everyone's here. They're cheering for
Good.
you.
Well, I hope so, because this is going to be something that when I go on tour, my first tour, this is going to be the first time that it's just going to be me and a microphone. I'm going to be given an hour-long speech about this very topic and why it's so important for us to fight back. And essentially, all these decisions are being made on behalf of kids, especially trans kids, or kids' books being removed from schools. Why is nobody asking the kids what they want? That's what how Somewhere Beyond the Sea is about. Why is nobody asking the kids what they think? And I'm so ready for you all to hear what the kids think, man, because they have opinions. And last, I'll say this: the very end of the book, House in the Cerulean Sea, there was a hinted at a boy Yeti named David coming to the island. David comes to the island, and his inspiration is specifically from Bill Watterson's Calvin and Hobbes. David is my Calvin, and I'm so excited for you all to meet him.
Oh man! So just in case there's somebody that doesn't know, which I doubt it, when is that book coming out?
September 10th. And remember, if anything
That's
bad
right.
happens on that day, it's not my fault. I mean, what could happen after that? I mean, it's only one of the biggest elections of our lifetimes.
All right, y'all go pre-order and support TJ Klune.
Yes. And I think that brings us to I have like a couple of lightning round questions. We don't even have to do them.
Well, Adam and Chrissy, Talia and Lucas, thank you so much for having me. Thank you to your wonderful community for welcoming me and being here. And remember, queer people are just amazing. We're tired. We are tired, but we are amazing. So support your queer people, because we got your back.
Absolutely. And you know, can you just keep coming back? That's the thing. Can we keep him?
Can we keep him?
So we licked him. He's ours now. TJ Klune for everybody. We're out of the job now, so congratulations. The job is yours.
Thank you.
You can come
The
back,
next book, we're going to be reading a really gross horror novel that probably will get some of you to quit reading.
It's your book club. You can do whatever you want. But seriously, we are so honored to have had you come hang out with us. You know, we're super proud, because this is we feel the best book club that's ever been.
Yeah.
Well, this is my favorite book club I've been to. I'll tell you that much so far.
That's on video.
No.
We got that on. We got that.
You can use that. You can use that as a blurb, like for one of your things. Yes.
Oh, can you say it like literarily wasted, and then we can like legit.
Yeah. So, but
Literarily Wasted is the best book club I've ever been on, and they're not holding a gun to my head to say this.
Yeah,
Perfect.
See, no guns involved. But yeah, seriously, you're welcome to come back at any time. You can even join. You can read when we read. You're always welcome here.
Or you could be
Literally
busy and keep writing.
I'll keep writing to make sure that you guys have more books to talk about. Because trust me, I'm only 42. I'm planning to get to at least 80. So if that's like a book a year, 40 more books. Let's go.
We'll be here for 40 more years.
We're ready.
All right.
But thank you so much for being here. And that does it for us.
All right.
We will see y'all next time. Bye, everybody.